Are you ready?
Yes, sir.
Are you ready?
For live.
Are you ready?
Let's do it.
Are you ready?
This live
Are you
talk.
ready?
Live
Are you
talk.
ready?
Yes, sir.
Are you ready?
Live talk.
For the word of the day, the knowledge and the wisdom will increase your faith. Are you ready for live talk?
Yeah.
Because it's about time to set it off. Are you ready?
Let's go.
For the word of the day, the knowledge and the wisdom will increase your faith. Are you ready for live talk?
Yeah.
Because it's about time to set it off.
Live talk. This live talk. Live talk. Living in vital energy. The universal language spirituality. Living in vital energy. The universal language spirituality. We're going all the way live with it. With live talk, increase your mentality, put away carnality, and increase your spirituality. Let's
Are you
go.
ready?
Live talk.
Are you ready?
This live talk.
Are you ready?
Live talk.
Are you ready?
Yes, sir.
Are you ready?
Live talk.
For the word of the day, the knowledge and the wisdom will increase your faith. Are you ready for live talk? Because it's about time to set it off. Shalom and welcome to Power Talk. Well, it ain't Power Talk.
Live talk. Live talk got a lot of power.
But check this out, though. It's going to be a lot of power today on Live Talk.
I like that one.
So welcome to Live Talk. I'm your host, Arthur Jeremiah, alongside my co-host, Minister Samuel.
Welcome again to Live Talk. Great to be here.
All right, y'all. Listen, it's cold today in Orlando, Florida. So just bear with us. You're gonna get some, we're trying to get out of all this cold so we can get warmed up for the show today. So how are you doing, brother?
All those other people around the country, they ain't got nothing on us today. All I can say is we feel it too. But other than that, I am good.
Right. All right. So we have a live show for you today, like always. Like I think we mentioned last week, for the rest of this month, all the way through the month of February and maybe beyond, we're going to talk about some Black unsung leaders in our community that has contributed to our community. So get ready, because it's going to be someone that you may not have heard of. But we definitely want to share it. I'm going to learn something today. You're going to learn something. We all going to learn something. But before we get there, I'm going to give you a rundown of the show today. First, we'll have the word of the day by the minister. He'll open up with that. Right after that, we'll go to a quick commercial break. And then when we come back from there, we'll introduce our guest for today. We'll have Brother Aaron Holloway, which is one of the MOP brothers. He's also a scholar and a historian. So we want to be able to hear from him, and he's going to share a lot of information with us today. If you can, do chime in. We do want to answer questions. We do want you to be able to share something at the same time. Right after that, we'll go to another commercial break. And after this commercial break, we'll come back with the book reading of the day. That's if we get to that point, Minister. You know how we get into things.
Time.
Yeah.
Time can be our friend, but sometimes it cannot be so friendly.
Right. So if our producers allow us to get to that part of the program, we are going to get to that part of the program. Then we'll also end with letting you know what we have going on for the following week. So with no further ado, Minister, what's the word of the day?
All right. The word of the day is freedom. So we're going to do a little quick definition, background on freedom. Freedom is the power or the right to act, speak, or think without hindrance or restraint, having full control of yourself. Freedom is the state of not being imprisoned or enslaved. And then paying a little close attention, in one of the definitions, it said, think. It was to, in freedom, it said think. And I would just want to bring that out. Think think is having a particular opinion, belief, or idea about something to direct one's mind. Give me 1 second.
And that came from, you said direct one's mind? And that came from the same?
Yeah, see, the power to act, speak, or think. And then think is being able to direct your mind. Now, Dr. Mae Jemison said, never be limited by other people's limited imaginations. So the word freedom was chosen today because as we celebrate these unsung heroes in African American history, which is truly American history, we can allow the beliefs, opinions, and ideas of others only to shape and define our freedom. Because when we do so, we unconsciously allow ourselves to be enslaved and imprisoned based upon their thoughts or their will.
You know, when I think about freedom, because we oftentimes, we think because we're free to do something that we're free. You know, I see brothers that even get out of prison, and they free. They say they're free. But I remember being free, like you said, to direct one's mind. Think, like when you're talking about true freedom, we're talking about mental freedom. You know, we're talking about freeing your mind. Our mind, to me, our minds are more in captivity than anything.
I agree.
To be able to walk free without, and then you still ain't walking free. If you walk across the street the wrong way,
get a ticket. Get a ticket.
So that ain't so much being free. So when you think about freedom, and one of the things that stood out to me, brought forth to me, we talk about independence, because we're going to talk a little bit about that today. And having independence is having or being free from the influence of others. And you mentioned a lot of that in what you was stating there. And I think we're more under influence of the system that gives us that false imagination that we're free, because we have joined into the system that has oppressed us.
That's it.
And it makes us feel like we're free. So when somebody else is done wrong, it don't seem like it's something that's connected to you until knock, it's knocking at your door. I was watching the Emmett Till story, right? And his mother, she made a statement, like when she was talking in front of the audience at the church, and she said she never, like, anytime something happened to somebody else that was looked like her in her community or in another community, her thought was, it wasn't me, so why worry about it?
Yeah.
But she's seen all the support that came from people that looked just like her and had sons that looked just like her son. So when you start to think about things on a level like that, and you ask yourself, I'm truly free mentally, or am I in captivity? And that's something that we have to really think about when it comes to true freedom.
Right, because that's why I wanted to bring out that point of thinking, part of the freedom. Like you say, we can take it, you can walk and say you're free, but that thinking is very important because everything takes place in the mind. And if we have the capacity of our thought only takes us to what our oppressors define as freedom, then we're living what they have defined for us as freedom.
Right.
But when you're free, we should be able to define our own freedom. That's why I was saying what Dr. Mae Jemison said, first Black female astronaut. You can't be limited by other people's limits. See, they limit our freedom to what they want us to be able to do. So like you're saying, you have a certain amount of so-called freedom, but if you go beyond what they have set for your freedom, you find out that you're free to drive, but if you go past a certain speed limit and you see them blue lights, guess what? That freedom comes to a quick halt.
Right.
So we have to be able to understand our own freedom, especially like talking about people in our history. If they define what they were and who they are, and they distort it, we lose the actual message,
right,
of what they intended.
right.
Or if they don't want us to hear about that message, they just won't put it out.
Right. Or they'll put it out in a way that it makes it looks incriminated to the people. Like they will put statements behind it, that derogatory statements.
Yes.
That now when the people hear it, it's almost like it just kind of it's so negative that people they shy away from it.
Right.
Because they created this system that if it doesn't go in order with what they have put in place, then it's something that's not looked upon as favorable. Mm-hmm. And that's why you find a lot of our great leaders came speaking against a lot of the status quo and what the system has in place. And a lot of our people didn't hear it because they was too caught up in the system. Mm-hmm. And I think we have to free our minds so that we can be able to achieve the ultimate goal. And that's the freedom that we're talking about, the independency as a nation, yes, as a people. Because a part of that freedom is being free to provide for yourself.
That's it.
All right. Well, today, y'all going to hear about two more unsung Black leaders in our community from history that have talked about nationalism and talked about independence. And we're going to get right to that when we come back with our guests. So we'll be right back. Hey, shalom and blessing, y'all. This is Dr. Amos Israel coming to you live. Listen, I'm so excited because my ebook version of The Spiritual Significance of a Name is now available. You can go to my website today at www.yeremiahisrael.com. Now, this ebook is pretty much available anywhere and everywhere that ebook is sold. I'm so excited about that because, see, ebooks are sold internationally, but I would like for you to go to my website at www.yeremiahisrael.com, pick up your copy, or you can go ahead and download the ebook version of it. Whether you're on a plane, whether you're traveling, whatever you're doing, pick up this copy. It's only $4.99. It's not going to break your pockets and not going, break the bank. So go ahead and get the copy of this ebook now, today, $4.99. Go to yeremiahisrael.com and truly become blessed, because it will truly put you on a path to defining your true purpose. Until next time, peace and prosperity. All right, welcome back to Live Talk. As mentioned before, we have in the studio our guest for today. And before we get right into that, I'm gonna turn it over to the minister.
All right. Yes, it is certainly my honor and privilege to introduce our guest to you today. Just a little background on the bio. Our guest was born in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Oh, I'm gonna have to do a whole. Because I might have to put some blame on him for bringing all this horribly frigid cold weather.
Right.
Because it's like maybe he's used to it, but I thought he was down here with us long enough that he had become one of us.
Right.
He was tropical, but apparently he reached back and brought a blast from the past and brought in a breeze of that Pittsburgh wind. But we go forgive him since he's going to be here sharing some wisdom and knowledge with us today.
We'll let it go this time.
We'll let it go this time. I didn't. Yeah, that sounds like a Pittsburgh response. But I guess he's got his Bachelor of Arts in Communications and Studies from West Virginia University. He then continued and got a master's in Employment and Labor Relations through Indiana University in Pennsylvania. But he has a full background in education, but he decided to expand his knowledge and personal growth by doing hands-on field research in both Egypt and Cuba to get a realistic study of the Black experience. And on his journey in becoming a master teacher, our guest is actually a self-trained historian, a student and master of history, notwithstanding being a professional in his field. But besides all of his academic accomplishments within academia, what he actually holds nearest and dearest to his heart is the love of family, or the love for his love of family. See, being a devoted husband and father, his knowledge of our history taught him the importance of not being an absentee or missing or part-time influence in the lives of our sisters and our children. So he is devoted and he lives his life being ever present as a Black man who is a living example of fatherhood and being a true husband or helpmate. So we have to always acknowledge the beauty and brilliance of a Black man who stands up to be the head of his household, to be a husband, to be a father, because we so often talk about that missing,
Right.
but we don't celebrate the fact that, like, see, when other people put out, when we were talking about freedom, they put out these influences, they need to use thought. Well, there's a lot of Black men who are standing up being husbands and fathers, and they're well-educated and they're professional, but they will want to make you think that that's not true.
Right.
Well, I want to let you know that's false. We are here, we're present, and we have one on our show today. So it is my pleasure to introduce to you our brother, Aaron Hardaway. Welcome to Live Talk.
Welcome,
Thank you,
sir.
brothers. I appreciate you having me. I'm humbled by the introduction. I just want to say I'm just a baby in knowledge. I'm just on my journey for wisdom, just like everyone else. So I'm still learning every day. I appreciate the intro. I'm humbled by that. And I appreciate the opportunity to come on the platform.
Yes, sir.
Thank
Indeed.
you. And welcome.
Indeed. And you're very humble, brother. I would say that because when we was thinking about this program, you was one of the first brothers that came to my mind, knowing how big you are in history and bringing a lot of information and knowledge to the forefront to the brothers, one such as myself. A lot of information and a lot of, people from, just here being in America, from slavery all the way up until this point here, our history beyond that, and the thing about that is, when the opportunity presented itself, I'm like, we got to have this brother on the show.
Oh, yeah.
we got to have him on the show. Because see, this brother, now he ain't limited to the information they know, but we're gonna limit some of the information today so that you can just get a scope of what what we're gonna be talking about today. And I can't wait to learn. We're gonna be talking about a very unique brother. I've seen a lot of his traits in most of the leaders that we have talked about and we have witnessed in the past, but this particular brother I have yet to hear about. And the brother that I'm talking about for the listening audience is Dr. Amos Wilson. We're going to talk a little bit about him today. And we're going to talk about another brother in history, but we're going to talk a little bit about him. And I guess the question I'm going to have open up, like, who is Dr. Amos Wilson? And, let's start there. Okay. Now, I wish I had a photo of him so that you can see that. And I plan on having that so that at least you can see. But let's get a little information on him. Who is Dr. Amos Wilson?
Okay, no problem. I appreciate all the kind words again. And once again, we worked together for years, so I
Yes,
learned a lot from
indeed.
from you brothers. So I have to say that as well. So Dr. Amos Wilson, when I think about some of the people who have helped me develop intellectually outside of my parents, I would have to say he's definitely in my top 5.
Okay.
Along with, Professor John Henry Clark. I'll just throw some other names. People might not be familiar, but if it's going to help advance people interests in something,
that's all good.
It's good. So Professor John Henry Clark. A lot of people are familiar with Marcus Garvey, Malcolm X, and then we have Dr. Amos Wilson. So obviously, you know how I feel about the other gentlemen, so I'll put them up there.
Right.
So this was a brother who was born in the 1940s in Mississippi.
Wow.
So So he was born in Mississippi in that era. So obviously his experience dealing with racism and Jim Crow segregation had to shape his views. But he decided to pursue an education at Morehouse, and that's where he got his bachelor's degree. Ultimately, he went on to study in New York at Fordham University to get his PhD in psychology. So he was definitely a master psychologist, and he also taught at City University in New York as well. He worked as a probation officer and did some social work. So he's been through a myriad of experiences that helped shape his view on the condition of Black people. And he was very adept at articulating solutions for us to implement. So that's one of the reasons why he's been a big influence on me. So just to give a brief introduction, we can kind of talk about some of his views and things like that.
Definitely. I noticed he said New York University. So my assumption is he's more of a north from up north opposed to the south, because you had like a lot of people from up north that it seemed like they like a lot of the Black leaders from up north, their mindset was different from the mindsets of some of the ones from the south and how they went about doing certain things. And considering, like you mentioned, Marcus Garvey, now is that one of his influencers when it comes to how he went about his? I always like to say, I use with Malcolm X ministry in a term of how he did certain things, but would that be a part of his journey in as an abolitionist? Because was he more of an abolitionist? Would you say?
Well, I would say he was a scholar, a scholar and a professor, but definitely his goal was to advance the cause of Black people. He was, to use an old school term, I would say he was a race man. So that means he used his education and his skills and talents to advance, and his scholarship to advance the cause of the Black race and elevate our consciousness. So definitely, he was a prolific writer. I would say definitely one of his major influences was Marcus Garvey, and he even has a book. I believe the title is Garveyism in the New World Order. So he's taking the teachings of Garvey, and he was explaining how we can implement those teachings in modern society, even though he passed away in 1995. Relatively recent.
Right.
Well, see, and you mentioned writing, but he actually is a scholar because he wrote very many books that I'm finding out on our experience. And the reason we have you here is because you're one who picked this out. With as much of his writing is out there, it's not really well known, but his writings is powerful. Like what would be one of your favorites, or if one you wanted to talk about that may be popular?
Okay, now I think his seminal work is The Blueprint for Black Power. Now, this is a serious literary contribution. We're talking about 1,000 pages.
Wow.
Yeah,
You
it
know,
is.
you're an author, so you know it takes some serious research
right.
to write a book that massive.
It sure does.
Now, that book is kind of along the same lines as the work of Dr. Clyde Anderson.
I thought about him when you were talking.
He's laying out the problems from because he was a psychologist, so he's laying it out from that perspective, and he's also giving us solutions that we can implement. So it's not just a study in history; it's actually a kind of a working document that you can apply today. He's talking about group economics. He's talking about building institutions and systems to counter the systems that have been put into place to keep us oppressed. That was one of the main points he always stressed. It's good to have the information and it's good to have the knowledge, but you have to institutionalize that knowledge so you can pass it down and disseminate the information effectively, especially to the next generation. So that was one of his main points. He also, gave us, well, he didn't give us the idea because there's a lot of people who influenced him, but he also spoke about us being a nation inside a nation. So he was able to conceptualize the condition of Black people and articulate and also give solutions. So when he says that we are a nation inside of a nation, he's saying that once we view ourselves as that, we can accurately assess our condition. So he said, once we view ourselves as a nation inside the nation, we have to accept the fact that right now in our current condition, we're a third world nation. That's why, other groups are able to come into our community and withdraw and extract resources, and we don't impose a tax. We don't tax them at all. You can't go inside any nation and exploit their economic system or use their economic system without being taxed.
Right.
So, when he's assessing our condition here, it's actually just a microcosm of our condition across the world, even in Africa. Foreign powers are able to come in and extract resources, and they're not able to impose a tax and benefit from them being in the country. If you go over to China and you want to do business in China, it's going to be a situation where it's mutually beneficial.
Yes.
And most of the time, they're going to benefit more. I think that was an important point that he stressed, knowing what time of day it was for us, and then how we can correct our condition. He talked about taking control of our economic system, sort of like Dr. Clyde Anderson and Marcus Garvey, building institutions, controlling industries, things of that nature. So
I want to the point that you're talking about, because it's a clip that I want to play. It kind of goes in line with what you're talking about. And then I want us to be able to come back off and kind of reflect off of what's being said, because you kind of touched on some of it. So let's go to that clip, that individual. He speaks a little bit about individualism, because as a people, the reason, and I'm gonna let him share it, but we'll talk a little bit about it.
Negroes who talk about they're individuals and that they're doing their own things. Isn't that interesting? We talk about individualism, right? It's supposed to be uniquely different. If we're so uniquely different, why do we buy millions and millions of 3-liter bottles of Pepsi Cola? Why do we buy millions of pairs of Timberland shoes? Where are all these individuals who are supposed to have such different tastes and joints? Why do we buy millions and millions of the same types of clothes, the same type of food, the same type of entertainment, the same type of music? What are we talking about? Who are these individuals who have such separate choices that they end up buying over and over again, the same product, millions upon millions upon millions of the same product, saying they're doing their own thing, and I'm an individual expressing my own taste. You must be joking. You're no individuals. There's no such thing as individualism. It's a joke that the white man runs on you. You say these other people are individuals? Well, tell me this. Why is it that 180 million white individuals decide that they won't spend a nickel with you? If they are so free, and if they are so different, and if they are so unique, and if they do all their things, and if they, then why is it a good chunk of them don't spend money with black people? Where is this individual choice? Where is this individual choice when 7 or 8 million Asians will walk 10 miles around not to put a nickel in your hands, and yet they come and sell you everything they got? Where is this individualism, ladies and gentlemen? Where is this individualism in Detroit when Arabs can own the infrastructure of that city and Negroes spend money after money with them and they not spend a dime and they treat them like dogs? But we're individuals. We're doing our own thing. So we're not a
as we can see, to a lot of what you just spoke on, when we talk about, their economic system and how they would tax us and things of that nature, we talk about individualism, me, myself, and I got my own thing going on over here. What's the individualism in the other nations? Why do they all treat us the same way? And we allowed it to happen. That was a powerful, statement, a speech, what he mentioned there. And it just goes into line with what you're saying as far as what, his philosophy and what he spoke and what he, brought forth as a solution to some of the things that we was going through and still going through today, if you think about it, right?
Yeah, I think he's talking about the illusion.
Yes.
There you go.
Yes.
There you go.
Because even if you view yourselves as an individual, the society is going to kind of shape your wants and desires.
Yes.
Right.
So it's a misplaced individualism because we're really treated collectively the same. So we should really collectively, move towards the same agenda to advance our cause. And I
think he brought that forth. Like he showed forth, like, you doing all these things here. Like, y'all do all this, like, you bought all these Pepsis, like, you spend all your money here, you do all this, but you saying, like you said, illusion of individualism. Like, you think you're an individual, but you're doing all the same thing. All these Jordans, Michael Jordan shoes that you're buying, y'all doing all the same thing. There ain't no individualism.
And that goes to the point what you were saying about, he was talking about a psychologically, and part of that clip is to point that out, that see, there's a psychological thing at play. And when you're not conscious of it, you feel that you're an individual, but the psychology is that's the way they use to oppress or to profit, however you want to look at it, off you, because they've given you a narrative and psychologically you feel good that I'm an individual. But they can, as you say, they can come in freely within your nation, but there's no treaty, there's no contract, there's no benefit for you. It's only for the extraction and benefit of them.
I think Paul Moody kind of put it in perspective when it comes to us as a people, even in the entertainment world. It's at that time where you get your nigga wake up call, how he put it.
Yeah.
and we all, it's like, oh, you feel so high and free and independent, right? Well, your time coming when you're going to get that nigga wake up call. But let's get back into, like, we keeping it on the topic where we're talking about, Dr. Amos Wilson and, what he has contributed to the Black community and what many don't know. And a lot of the information that you're sharing about this gentleman is very, very important. It can be important to a high school student, one that's in college, that's wants something to be able to connect to. I think we always want to be inspired by somebody that look like us. If you want to be inspired by that type of individual, and this is an individual that I'm happy that you brought forth, so that I can learn about him. And I see a lot of the similarities to others in our history as well. But it's good to know that there was a collective group of individuals that was looking for, and I would say nationalism, if you will. Mm-hmm. But one of the things I'm going to ask you, why you think he hasn't been spoken of as much in main media, the mainstream media, even in some schools, and maybe some schools may talk about him. Like Morehouse, you mentioned that he went to Morehouse, and I can only imagine that Morehouse might have him speak about him a little bit.
Well, you never know.
Right.
Depending on where the dollars are coming from.
Yeah.
Right. But why you think like the main media, mainstream media?
His message is revolutionary, as opposed to a conservative message, which would maintain the status quo. So, and he even talked about in his lectures about the nature of the education that's designed for a Black child cannot be conservative by nature, because basically we don't have anything to conserve. They're trying to conserve the social order.
Yes.
Our education has to be revolutionary. So we have to challenge the system. We have to upset the system. He even said, quite frankly, I'm trying to increase racial tension, because once we challenge the order, and it doesn't even mean violently, just by building and knowing for self, and we've seen that throughout history. Right. There's going to be a backlash. So there's no matter what we do. So we might as well advance our cause and build institutions, do for ourselves, because there's no way to challenge the status quo and power order without tension, some tension at some level. So we might as well do what we have to do. So when you have that type of message, and you're unapologetic about our condition of what we need to do, you're not going to make it to mainstream.
Right. That ain't status quo.
Yeah.
And that's why we want to promote it, and we're glad you're here, because you said something that's very powerful that that the doctor said, and I'm wrapping my thoughts around it, because we've used that term, but when he talked about being a third world, being a nation, when a nation will say that, but you have to respect it. And he pointed that out, that we're a third world nation. But psychologically, the system wants us to feel that we're part of this first world nation, rather than accept the fact that we are a third world nation. And that's going to cause some friction, because it's in order for you to now move to condition of your nation and your people up, that means changes have to take place.
That's it.
See, we'll be taught in academia to go get a business degree, and we'll go invest in what's called up and coming economies. And okay, there's an up and coming economy right here in this nation. If we invested in our own, the way we'll seek to go invest in someone else's. But when you get there, like you say, there's a tax, there's an agreement, there's something you're going to have to meet. But we could invest in this third world nation that we have right here and grow it. If we could recognize that's what we truly are.
And let loose. And I think we talked a little bit about this in the beginning when we talk about freedom and true freedom and having mental freedom. And I think being captive mentally has been one of our biggest issues. And I think as a psychologist, I think he speaks to us that, when we talk about, that's going back saying individualism, but that's what prevents us from coming together and doing some of the things that we often talk about, even some of our Black leaders talk about. having that mindset. And if we came from the system, there's a certain amount of deception that we're taught within the system. And a lot of this taught repetitively, over and over again, that is now it's ingrained in our minds. So if and then it happens, if it don't happen with the man, it happens with the woman. Mm-hmm. And it depends on who's dominant in the relationship, the other person can influence the other person. And next thing you know, you have a mindset that's in captivity to the system, but believe they're free. And I think that's what the doctor kind of speak towards when he's speaking. But I have another clip that I want us to kind of look at. I want us to be able to come back and expound off of that one as well. Let's play the other clip.
In other words, you see, if you study that history stuff, you'll begin to see some principles operating here that have little or nothing to do with race, that are not intrinsically related to our Africanness or our blackness, but it's related to the political design of a system, related to the very criminal nature of a society that is designed to rob poor people of their dignity and to rob poor people of their wealth and to destroy poor people, such that it locks poor people up regardless of race, so that it locks outsiders up regardless of race, so that it locks people up who are seen as strange and foreign regardless of race, so that it attacks them as criminals and locks them up so that it can convince itself and those people that they are the greatest threat to the society and not the people who are locking them up. So that the focus can be on those who are being locked up and crime can be defined in terms of the pictures you see on the TV show of those who are being locked up and handcuffed, and not the crime of the ruling classes who are impoverishing these people and destroying their very lives. So that we cannot focus on the reconstruction of this society and see our goal is merely the reconstruction of the criminal and the rehabilitation of those families who are supposedly in trouble, and not the rehabilitation of these overfed white people and greedy pigs. So that we can see that the problem is one of increasing police power, of giving the police permission to execute black men on sight, and not to see the fact is that we need to reorient the power relationship between black and white folks in this nation and in this world, and reconstruct who has the power in this society. But as long as you see yourself as criminal, as long as you let the other people convince you that we are criminals, as long as we see the criminal as the poor boy on the street, we don't see the criminal as the ones in the suites. We don't see ourselves then, and we don't see the necessity of changing our economic circumstances and getting in control of our wealth. We don't see the necessity of bringing these white men to heel and changing the power relations and the economic relations in this world.
That was powerful.
Yeah.
And we got to see a clip, so we good. We got to let them actually see a live clip.
And this just goes to play, like when we talk about, and I think you can hear more of that psychologist mindset of him speaking that in that particular one there, because he's talking in regards to the system itself, which have gave you this image, ideal of yourself being a criminal in society, when the true criminals are those that runs and operate, the ones that put you into the jail system. And then it goes to the play of talking about rehabilitation, which is something that we don't see today in the criminal system.
Don't exist.
It don't exist at all.
Not in American criminal. So there is no such thing.
Yeah. So that goes back to freedom. Like, are you truly freedom when you come out of prison? Think about it. If you haven't went through a process of rehabilitating your mind, and I don't care if you went to the library. I don't care if you went to the library and you pulled out a whole bunch of books like Malcolm X did, and rehabilitate your mind.
That's it.
That's the main thing. And I think that's what he talks to when he's speaking in that particular clip there. What y'all think?
He's powerful now. If you want to, I wanted to point on something out. Like, just see, as an author, I'm looking, one of the books he wrote, and it kind of keys in on that, was this. And just to write a book like this, but then to know that this is not just like verbiage, but this is an actual psychologist and a doctor who wrote this. The book is called The Psychodynamics of Black Self-Annihilation in Service of White Domination. And now I haven't read that book, but I'm gonna have to go read it because he's laying that out perfectly, and it's a perfect view of how we speak. How he says you look at the criminal in the street, but you don't see the criminal that's in the suite.
Yeah.
And that continue because what they do, because someone is wearing a suit, you assume he's not a criminal.
Right.
But someone who you've impoverished, who doesn't have on shoes, you identify him as a criminal. Well, who's the criminal?
Right.
The one that do the impoverishing or the one that's impoverished?
Mm.
And when you begin to think that you're the criminal, then you become a part of that domination system on your own self.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that book up. That's a powerful book. And that's the subtitle. The title is Black on Black Violence.
Mm.
So when you read that book, you think he's just going to talk about, Black on Black violence,
Yep.
The way conservatives talk about it. Like,
Yep.
they're doing it to themselves. No, but he goes farther in the subtitle. He's talking about how it's self-annihilation in service of the system, basically. So in that book, he lays out how the system is socially and politically designed for us to destroy ourselves, and while ultimately the power structure benefits. So he doesn't just talk about what we do, because that's the surface level. The problem, he talks about the overall structure of society and who put us in this position. And even in that clip, he breaks down in the full clip.
Yeah,
he breaks down the history of white immigrants coming to this country and how originally they started the gangs. Originally, they were perceived as criminals, especially the Irish and the Italians.
Yeah.
But the difference between us and them was they were able to assimilate into whiteness.
Yeah.
The white power structure, assimilate into that. Originally, they weren't perceived as they weren't viewed as white.
Right.
They hated Irish. They hated Irish people.
Yeah. But after a generation or two, once they overcame that language barrier, a lot of them even changed their names in order to appear more American or more white. So they were able to receive that benefit of being classified as white. So they received true rehabilitation. They were given jobs. But when we have a criminal class because of the position we've been put in, the economic deprivation, we don't get that same benefit to assimilate and have the opportunity to rehabilitate and program social services set up for us. We're just, they create the mass incarceration system. They just incarcerate us, and they don't open up those economic opportunities to us. So that, like Professor John Henry Clark said, we're in the melting pot, but we're the people who can't melt. Everyone else can melt. And that's exactly what they do.
But we don't.
They come over here as immigrants, and yes, they were oppressed. They were oppressive for a point, for a period of time, but they were able to assimilate and receive the benefits of being classified as white.
Yeah, and I just want for any, for the listening audience, if you're on Facebook, calling in, what have you, you can chat if you wanted to, send us a message or ask a question. If you wanted to chime in, by all means, you can do so as well. You can chime in. But I want to move forward because it's a lot of information that we're sharing about Dr. Amos Wilson, and like you said, that full clip. I did listen to that full clip, and there's a lot of power in that clip. And I just kind of had a piece of it I wanted us to kind of share from them. I'm glad you was able to expound on that a little further. So for anyone that's listening, they'll be able to kind of get the gist of what was being said in that clip. At this point, I know we want to talk about Dr. Amos Wilson. I think did you have more questions, Minister, in regards to that? Because I know we wanted there's touch
I'm looking
base
at
on.
are we going to even be able to give our other guests the amount of time due based on the time I'm looking at?
Okay.
But I don't know if it'll do them justice to it's like,
I know.
I don't know if it'll do Montelini justice if we do it at this hour. I mean, because see, Dr. Amos Wilson is somebody that we need to be talking about.
Yeah.
All of them.
Yeah.
And we can switch, but at this time, I don't know if we really will have time to do
switch over to
do enough service. Because like with Dr. Wilson, like the book that you were talking about, and what is the actual title of that book? Black on Black.
It's Black on Black violence. You had the subtitle.
The subtitle, yeah. Because the subtitle, I was like,
the subtitle, very important.
It is incredible. It's like for someone to be, because he actually broke down a situation of what happens. But it's Black on Black violence. Because I haven't read the book, but that's one I want to put in my library. Black on Black violence. Because see, the academia will have you think that we the criminal and we the cause of that, and that's the problem. But they created that, and he pointed it, I'm sure he points it out in the book. They created that scenario and then use it. And when we talk about the system, people like Dr. Wilson, he can see it clearly. When slavery, because we're not physical slaves, see what those who sit back and think, that's what freedom is about. They say, okay, we can't physically enslave them, but if we put them in mass incarceration and take away their rights, we can now enslave them legally and we can benefit from
the Constitution.
Mass incarceration. We can benefit from it. So it's like when you have a situation of
Constitution,
and this happened, like he was born in the 40s, but in the 60s and the 70s, it was a lot of towns where a black man could be, I'm like, if he didn't even have to steal a piece of candy, he could be accused of it. And then the sheriff, being a part of that system, could arrest him, send him off to jail. And then he's doing 20 years because he was allegedly stole something. Now you just took away his freedom and you made him a slave. And now you can use him to build your system. And because you didn't want to pay, like, see the Irish and the Italians, because they had begun to transition over into whiteness, you couldn't benefit off their labor anymore. Right. So it's like, we just go turn this around on black people. We arrest them, take away their privileges, and now we can work them again like they're slaves. Right. And we can benefit and profit. So then when we see crime on the street, we say that's a thug shooting a thug. And why aren't we mad about the thug shooting another thug? Well, who created the system? It's like, and now I'm not a dog lover, but if there are any dog lovers out there, like pit bulls, for an example, what I understand is they've gotten a bad rap.
Yeah.
Because people who love dogs say they can be just as friendly and they can be just as gentle.
They're more domestic
as your German Shepherd or your Car East or your Hounds of Spaniel. Yet the reputation that we have, because I know psychologically, I see one and it's like, I know his jaws will lock and that thing weighs 90 pounds. I'm gonna walk on this side. But if you train him and you put him in a pit and you teach him to be violent and you teach him to be a killer, when he goes in that pit, he is a killer. But you made him that way. And then you breed him, like you breed a killer from two more killers. And now that next one, because I've seen this, they have genealogy on dogs. And we're not promoting cruelty to animals, but those who in it, they have a killer versus another killer to produce offspring. What is that going to produce? An even better killer. And you put him in a pit. So is the dog at fault for that? Or for the one who created that situation at fault? Now, you'll say that's wrong to do that to an animal. but you don't say that's wrong to do it to people.
Well, you think about it, if you go back to slavery, what did they do with the men as an entertainment? 2 black men had to fight and one had to kill the other as entertainment. So it's the system is teaching us, how to fight against one another and destroy one another. But now you come back and point at, black on black, how they destroy one another. You created this system. You built this, you established this here. And then now you want to talk about the condition of the people, saying black on black crime and etc. When you put the people in the position of this, you didn't give them any resources. Because think about it, if you let a people go, they have no resources. What they're gonna do? They're gonna try to survive.
Yeah.
By any means necessary, they're gonna try to survive. And that's what you had in us being released at a time that, in slavery, they say, well, you're free now. Free to do what? I don't have no means to make no money. I don't have no means to buy any food. So what's going to happen? Like, to your point, if I'm going to break the law because I'm going to have to get me something to eat. I don't have money to pay for it, but I have to feed myself.
You reneged on the 40 acres.
Right. So now, guess what you're doing? You're putting me all the way back in slavery by arresting me and putting me back in jail again, which was the chain gang. They call it the chain gang. Now you're putting all us in the chain gang because you didn't give us any resources to be able to provide for ourselves.
Build the railroad system, and they made billions off that.
And then the thing about it, even if you fast forward a little bit, because us as men, black men, suffered the most. Now the family is destroyed because who ain't in the family? It's not a family if you're gonna have husband, wife, and children. If you only got the wife and the children, that's not a family without the man. So you destroyed our whole family by implementing or by doing what you did and not allowing for us to have a means to make money to provide for our families.
Our condition was definitely socially engineered, and anyone who's honest would come to that conclusion.
Right.
Even Dr. King, I know you guys talked about him last week, but he had a quote. First, he quoted another gentleman, a poet, and he quoted him by saying, "When souls are left in darkness." I might be getting it wrong, but I'm just paraphrasing. When souls are left in darkness, the one who is in the darkness is not to blame. It's the person who created the darkness. And then Dr. Martin Luther King went on to say, well, who created the slums here? Who created the miseducation system here? So when you see, blacks in the condition that they're in today, whose fault is it really? The majority of the blame goes to the people who orchestrated the system.
That's it.
So he was exactly right. And once you do get a chance to read that book, he breaks that down pretty thoroughly. He left an incredible literary tradition, and he has a lot of lectures on YouTube. I would say his style is more professorial. You like kind of get that. It's like being in the classroom. It's not necessarily always filled with charisma. He's just teaching it, but the message is powerful. So definitely one of our great prolific scholars. And anyone who sits down and listens to him and read his work, you reach the same conclusion.
Yeah,
he was serious.
I was just looking even YouTube, just looking it up, and I'm looking at different, like you say, different messages. He talks on many different subjects pertaining to us as a people. Of course, that's where a lot of his messaging comes from, and it's a lot of information out there. So it's kind of hard when we're talking about him for most people not to know about him, and hopefully by just listening to the show today, more people go out and just research and kind of look him up and see some of the stuff that he's talking about, because it's very, I say it's potent to us as a people, especially our young people, and because I think, and nowadays our young people think slavery doesn't exist. because we're not physically in change anymore, in change. And I think that's a far from the truth, because we're more mentally enslaved than we was physically enslaved. At least we knew we was enslaved when we was in chains. At least we knew, okay, I'm locked up. I can't move. I can't do what I want to do. Nowadays, because our minds are free to accept the influence and the philosophies that's been, given to us, we think we're free. But even by accepting that has put us more into captivity than we thought we was in. Because it's not to say that you grew up, you with this, you have a white friend you're cool and everything together. You grew up from elementary to high school. He may go on and be a CEO of a company. His father may have been a CEO, but then now you going to put a resume in somewhere and you trying to get a job somewhere. So that's the difference when we think about it. There's one that's going to always be good, because that's his privilege, and there's one that's going to always have to work hard and try to, like we said before, try to survive and make his way in society.
Because see, I'm fortunate enough to have grown up when I was in, I believe it was 3rd grade, and our teachers, I will call her name, but I remember her well. And she could openly say it in the classroom that you have to be 2, if not 3 times better than your white counterparts if you're going to succeed. And she was telling the truth.
Yeah.
But see, unfortunately, in the system now, the illusion is we can't say that. But that is true.
So true.
But we were able to be taught that from a young age. And now, like you say, if our children, though they can go to school, and the racism is, we can't be racist when you're oppressed. That's a whole nother conversation. But it's not against the white, it's the system that's there.
Yeah.
But even though they can come to the same level, he don't even have to be from a CEO. But in society, if the 2 of them go into a situation equally and they come out, if in most cases, when if the police have to be called and it's a criminal situation, your situation to get out of that criminal activity is going to be a lot different because of the socioeconomic system that has been put in place.
Right.
If you get into the system, it's going to be very difficult for you to overcome versus what your white counterpart may have to overcome, because it is baked into the system. And which is, like you say, if you're intellectually honest, you have to realize that it's systematic.
Yeah. I would say Dr. Amos Wilson, he stresses, we're in the condition we're in because we're at a power deficit. So his main message is to build power. Well, one of his central messages is to build power through economics as well, and which is very important because, white people have been able to transfer wealth down intergenerationally.
Yes.
That's something that we've been deprived of. And like you said before, once you're deprived economically, that's a cultivating grounds for criminality. So, I mean, our duty to move forward is to, leave something for the children.
Yeah.
And the statistics bear out the disparity between blacks and whites. Even if, you take a black, when you look at the aggregate data, if you look at college educated blacks and college educated whites, same education, the wealth disparity is about 10 times. Even if you take a college educated black and a high school educated white, they still have drastically more wealth than the average black family. So what you say about being 10 times, 2-3 times better is definitely right. Just the statistics bear it out. Because if education is the great equalizer, if you take 2 people with the same degrees,
yes,
you should have the same outcome.
Right.
This is statistically proven. you know, that Black people, you know, have drastically less wealth. So,
Yeah.
you know.
And now we have access to the same degrees. Like you say, when that wealth is transitioned, like a $1,000 bond can be cutting a check for someone. $1,000 bonds somewhere else can mean you're going to stay in jail until you see a judge. $10,000 for an attorney could mean you walk out of here with a slap on the hand. $10,000 for someone else means you're going to prison.
It kind of goes back to what he said and about individualism and how we think we're individuals, but we all do the same thing. Like when you're talking about how whites leave generational wealth behind, you know, for their children, that's not an individual thing within their society. All of them do it, but individual, like it's not individual with us. We all do the same thing. We don't leave that wealth behind for our children. And so it ain't like it's a group of us that, you know, we all think alike. So it's clear to the systematic way in how we've been structured to think and act. You know, if we all acting and doing the same thing, something like you can go to somebody like we talking about you from Pittsburgh, and we right here. I may not have never met these Black folks before, but it's almost like we're on the same mindset, the same wavelength, and how we think about certain things. And you go all over the country, it's the same thing in how Black folks think. You know, majority of Black folks and how they think and how they operate, and you can tell from that point there. That's where that mental captivity has taken place, you know, and there's no freedom in how they think and how they do certain things. Because in our minds, what we'll think, well, most Black folks, I'm not going to leave nothing behind. I'd rather spend all I got right now.
Take it all with me.
I'm going to take it all with me. Okay, but what about your future and the future after that? And that's what we don't think about. And that's why it's so tough for us to come together and create a society like Dr. Amos Wilson talking about, and create that type of system that we can empower ourselves to be either equal, like really equal to our counterpart, because it ain't really equal as you integrating with them, because you're integrating into a system that's going to oppress you. But truly become equal, where you can sit at the same table and you can pay for the same amount of food that they get, you know, truly become equal, not just integrated into a system, like I said, that's going to oppress you and make you think psychologically that you're free.
No, we won't be equal till we have equal power.
That's it. That's it.
Reorient that power relationship, like Dr. Amos Wilson would say it. That's the only way. You know, as long as you're a consumer and everyone owns the business, you're never going to be equal.
That's it.
That's just what it is.
Have to have the power. See, you when you're free, they want to come and sit at your table. Nobody's coming to sit at our table. We're going at everybody else. We're looking to go to everybody else's table. When they come in and sit at our table, then we know we're free. See, other nations say, come and we go sit at the round table. We don't have a table.
That's right. That's it. All right. So we coming at 10 after the hour. We're going to go to a commercial break and we'll come right back and we'll get ready to sign off. We'll be right back.
Hey guys, Angela Scott with Scott Capital Finance. Don't you delay that refinance any further. Give me a call and let's pull the equity out of that home. At Scott & Associates Accounting Firm, you can get your taxes done in or outside of the office by an experienced tax professional. To schedule your appointment, give us a call today at 321-754-1360. The number again is 321-754-1360. Or schedule your appointment online at www.countonscott.com.
Well, welcome back to Live Talk. Today we have our guest, Aaron Holloway, that joined us in the studio today. And one of the peoples that we was talking about, one of the unsung leaders that we talked about today was Dr. Amos Wilson. And we want you to be able to go back and listen to the program as far as the information that was shared today about Dr. Amos Wilson. He's a very, he got a lot of messages that's on YouTube. I want you to just type in Dr. Amos Wilson. You'll see a lot of messages on YouTube that he presents, a lot of information. You'll find it very intriguing. So we want you to be able to go in, and we want you to know about this brother here, because he contributed a lot to our community and the information that he brought forth. And we thank our brother for coming in today to be able to share a lot of that information with us. But as we get ready to close out, right before we close out, we're going to go to the announcements that we have for the day. Brother engineer, we're going to go ahead and play our announcements for the day, and we're going to come back and just kind of sign off. To stay connected to us, follow us on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram at Live Talk Orlando. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel, Live Talk Orlando. You want to come on to the show? Join us on the show? You'd like for us to interview you? Then email us at livetalkorl@gmail.com. You can also follow the host on Facebook at Define Your Purpose 2021, on Instagram at Jeremiah Israel, and you can visit the website www.jeremiahisrael.com. Make sure you pick up a copy of The Spiritual Significance of a Name. All right, well, we'll get ready to sign off. I think I'll start with our dear brother and guest. If anything you want to leave for the listening audience as far as information that you shared today, how they can get some of the information, anything you want to say to the listening audience as we sign off?
Yeah, definitely. First of all, I want to thank my brothers for allowing me to come on your platform. I really appreciate the opportunity. Sometimes you get contained in your own, especially during this coronavirus, you get contained in your own little world. But,
right.
I appreciate that. So, it's good to get this stuff out. And Dr. Amos Wilson, he's one of the guys who I always said that, when I get the chance, I'm going to let people know about him. So just to name a few of his books, like you said, definitely go on YouTube and just check out his videos, take some notes and things like that. But we mentioned Black on Black violence. That's definitely one. I think that's still available on Amazon. Blueprint for Black Power. That's the seminal work. That's about 1,000 pages. So that's a serious work. The developmental psychology of the Black child. That's it. We talk about that. Awakening the natural Black genius.
I saw that one. Just the title was like, wow.
Yeah, right.
Falsification of African consciousness. Garveyism in the New World Order. Those are just a few, but he got a lot of work out there. So definitely check out his work.
Okay, indeed. Minister.
Brother Aaron, of course, we thank you for being here with us. I'm gonna just have to give you an open invitation. We need to bring you back because we had other things we wanted to discuss and we didn't get an opportunity on this program. So we definitely want you to be able to come back and share some more wisdom with us on our history.
Definitely take you up on that opportunity.
Okay.
Indeed. I want to say thank you for coming on to the show. Like I said, you was one of the main people that I thought about when it came to speaking about unsung Black leaders in our community. So I thank you for coming on to the show. I thank those of you out there that are listening in or viewing in. Thank you for joining the show and just, supporting the show as well. And like always, peace and prosperity. And from Live Talk We out.
Are you ready? Yes, sir. Are you ready? For live. Are you ready? Let's do it. Are you ready? This live. Are you ready? Are you ready? Yes, sir. Are you ready? For the word of the day, the knowledge and the wisdom will increase your faith. Are you ready for live talk? Yeah. Because it's about time to set it off. Are you ready? Let's go. For the word of the day, the knowledge and the wisdom will increase your faith. Are you ready for live talk? Yeah. Because it's about time to set it off. Spirituality, living in vital energy, the universal language of spirituality. We're going all the way live with it. With live talk, increase your mentality, put away carnality and increase your spirituality. Let's go. Live talk. Are you ready? This live talk. Are you ready? Live talk. Are you ready? Yes, sir. Are you ready? Live talk. For the word of the day, the knowledge and the wisdom will increase your faith. Are you ready for live talk? Because it's about time to set it off.